Hey there, Internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and joining me this week we have once again Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on, nerds?
And we also have Jazz Foster back again. How you doing, Jazz? Jazz?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
I can hear you now.
Is my voice that bad? I've been better, Trevor.
I did not hear anything until the "Can you hear me?" But yes, now we can hear you, and yes, your voice is a little rough.
Thanks. Yeah.
A little shot, it seems. So we'll dive into some of the cause of that, I guess, here in a little bit. But before we dive in, a little bit of housekeeping. If you enjoy what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review the podcast everywhere you can. And if you're feeling extra generous, you can always support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. No new patrons this week, but if you do join us and support us over there, we'll give you a welcome shout out here in the podcast. So, let's kind of dive right on in then. I guess, Jazz, to kind of help explain away your voice, let's kind of talk about your back to work, and you've kind of encountered some of the trials and tribulations of going back to work after 2 months in quarantine-ness. So how's that going?
Yeah, man, I'm back. It's been okay. We reopened on Wednesday, so I have worked every day for the past 4 days. And I will work tomorrow and also Monday, which is a 6-day streak for anybody counting at home.
Mm-hmm.
So my voice is shot. I haven't talked this much in a while, and I'm so sore. People, I think service industry jokes about it a lot, and they're like, oh, I'm in server shape, which is just like a lot of leg muscle, basically, because you walk all the time. And I am no longer in server shape, and my coworkers and I talked about it a little. We're like, it's amazing what your body can get used to, and that's just a general, statement. It really is amazing what you can just become accustomed to. And for servers, you really become accustomed to being on your feet all the time, standing, walking, running, carrying weird stuff, and I forgot how much it hurts when you're new. Everything below my hips is numb halfway through the shift, and I hunch really badly, so my back is sore. With all that said, I'm glad to be back working because I was bored, but it's a mixed bag so far, I think.
Yeah. How's the response been? Has it been busy? Have people been coming back, or are people still kind of staying away? Does it feel?
We've been busy, actually.
Okay.
We're basically running half staff right now, because obviously restaurants are still at that 50% capacity marker. So we need less staff to do that, and which just means everyone works twice as hard because it's still, not super easy.
Yeah.
It's gotten busier as the days went by, as more people find out that we're open. We're also still doing takeout, which is not something. I work for a snooze, so if anyone lives near a snooze, then you know what I'm talking about. But it's just like a pancake forward breakfast joint that acts like a club.
What?
Yeah, you didn't know that? Have you been to a snooze?
I've never thought of them as a club.
Yeah. The one of the main tenets of snooze, like the reason it was started, is the CEO, was working nights and then didn't like it because nights kind of blow when you get off at 3 a.m. or whatever. And he would go and take his parents out to breakfast in the mornings, and it would always be at some place like IHOP or Denny or whatever, just like something dreary and not very exciting. And he found himself wishing that he could work mornings, but work somewhere with the atmosphere of a nighttime restaurant. And that's what snooze is supposed to be, and that's why the music is always so loud, and that's why all the servers they tend to hire high energy people because they want you to feel excited about breakfast.
Okay.
Oh, that's that snooty looking place on ASU's campus right by
there is a snooze over by ASU, yeah. The one I've gone to a few times is right across the street from like my former employer. Because yeah, snooze, like pretty much all of the foods, has made its way out here to Phoenix too. So
yeah, no, there's 3 of them out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it started closer to you guys. It started in Colorado.
That's right. Yeah. When Logan came out here to visit a couple years ago, I took him to Snooze, and he really enjoyed it. But yeah, there was one out in the Biltmore area here in the Phoenix area, which was right across the street from my old work, and so I would go there occasionally. It was the kind of thing like I most frequently would go on like the weekends, like a Saturday morning to take my family and stuff. And I think the first time I took my family, it was basically like, hey, there's this brunch place across the street from my new job, and it's it's really good, but there's a long wait. And so we put in my name. And then like they were like, okay, it's gonna be about an hour, and so I was like, cool. And so we walked over. I showed like my family my office, and then we walked back pretty much just in time to grab food. So I guess like in that sense, it was like club-esque, and then like I had to put my name in at the door or something. Well, even that's not like a club thing, I don't think of, but because yeah, the aesthetic was like strikes me more as like 60s diner-esque.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would have pegged that over club, I guess. But they
Yeah,
do have
I mean,
they do have a little bar set up too.
I mostly mean the atmosphere, and it is like Snooze keeps the music loud, to the point where like customers often, I get customers, older people usually, and they'll be like, "Can you turn the music down? It's so loud we can't hear each other." And the official response, because I always have to say like, "Oh, ask a manager," because that's not my job, and I pass the buck. But the official response is like, well, this is the atmosphere that Snooze is going for, and we want everyone to be excited and lively, so no, we can't turn it down.
Yeah.
Wait,
We'll never turn the
place,
music down.
the place with this aesthetic is going for a lively club happening vibe.
Yeah! Yeah, it's fun.
Also, I just want to say, I'm looking at their website from my memories of like, so I used to walk past there all the time when I was going to, because I was a downtown Phoenix campus student, and so, but I had a couple classes on actual main ASU's Tempe campus where this Snooze is located, and the light rail stop that I used to get off on was like I would walk right by it, and man, it like I always thought it was, but I'm confirmed after looking at like the menu and everything. This is some real white people shit.
Yeah,
Well-
it's a brunch place. I don't know a brunch place that isn't real white people shit.
But I am gonna
It's
say,
true, yeah.
I am gonna say, the Bella Bella Benny with the the Benny like cage or the poached egg on ciabatta with like cream cheese, hollandaise, balsamic glaze, arugula, also with like some Tagliatelle cheese and like prosciutto. Like that sounds hella awesome.
Oh yeah, I mean the
Our food
pancakes
slaps.
are kind of their feature thing, but their egg, like the variety of eggs Benedicts they have are also just like phenomenal. That's,
I will say that there's more than man. You know what? I take like this is some real white people shit, but it's vibing with the white like the fact that I'm white. So it's,
yeah,
it's vibing
when
hard with it.
when I don't know if the ones out here are open back up yet, but
They're
when
not.
yeah, like looking at my phone, it looks like they're all saying closed, but they also are historically like morning only or early afternoon only places, so they would be closed by now anyway, by this time of day.
And to no surprise, the ASU Tempe campus one, people were always getting hella wasted in the middle of the day.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But when everything reopens, Cam, you and I'll have to go swing by and I'll introduce you to Snooze out here, because it's a great brunch place. And I'm glad to hear that at least the ones out in Austin there are opening back up for you, and you got an opportunity to get back out there and get back to work, Jazz.
Yeah. Just mine. So lucky me,
Just
I suppose.
yours.
Oh yeah. We're the test Snooze, I suppose.
Okay.
We're the only restaurant open right now, which is cool.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure on us, but I think we're doing well, and we have been busy. Today was really busy.
Yeah.
Question for you though, what kind of
Yeah.
like quarantine like social distancing protocols are you guys doing for the place then?
Yeah, it's a good question. So in Austin right now, you can't have a bar top open, strictly speaking. So you can't have anyone sit at a bar top. You can't order from a bar top. Nothing. So we have a bar, obviously, and right now there are no chairs at it. And the bartenders just do they package all of our to-go orders, and they do the cocktails and the coffee drinks. Every other table inside is closed, and there are big stickers that mark them as closed. Snooze also, we use a host stand to seat people, so the hosts obviously curate that and make sure no one is sitting in a spot they're not allowed. the outside patio is much the same. We actually have 2 patios, but the tables are spaced out enough, and we have a few select ones closed so that no group is ever, within 6 feet. We're not serving any groups of more than 6.
Nice.
Yeah, we made a whole new job description, basically. We have a safety dancer. That's what we call it. I don't know why.
It's because they do the safety dance.
It's because snooze makes up a language that they used for just describing everything.
Well, it's a club atmosphere, so you need a dancer, of course.
You do need a dancer.
Yeah, it's true.
It's important to note, though, you can dance if you want to. You can leave your friends behind. Because if friends don't dance, and if they don't dance, then they're no friends of mine. Anyway.
I always want to play that song when the safety dancer clocks in, and they won't do it.
What? Why not?
Yeah,
That's if I was the safety dancer, that would be like my number one thing. I would just like have like a little like Bluetooth like portable speaker with me at all times, just blaring that song. And when you heard it from the distance, and as it's getting nearer, you know I'm coming.
You know shit's about to get clean, because the safety dancer goes around and just does loops of the restaurant and sanitizes fucking everything once every 15 minutes.
Hells yeah.
Yeah.
So we're being very strict about it. We're keeping it very clean. Every staff member wears a mask and gloves that we change regularly. I mean, like, I change mine every 10 to 15 minutes. My hands are so gross. They are.
From like the powdery stuff from the plastic sweating on them?
No, just from sweating inside them. They're like, I got bar rot, like just skin falling off my fingertips. Yeah, it's disgusting. All in the name of safety for you people that want to go out and have brunch. So I hope everyone appreciates that.
That is some serious white white guilt right there.
Well, we're keeping it very clean, and we're trying to adhere to the strictest definitions so we keep people safe.
Nice. That's awesome.
That's kind of Snooze's biggest priority, both their staff and their customers. And it's cool. I'm proud to work there because we're doing, I think, a pretty good job.
Nice. Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that.
I gotta get off this page because the menu's just rotating the photos, and I'm just getting.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Don't look, man. The food is really, really good too.
Yeah.
Like it's
Can't
just
stress that enough.
It's vibing the deepest parts of like my white heritage is just like screaming at me like it's right in my head. It's just like it's telling me, hey, listen, this quarantine might just be a conspiracy, so you should like try to. I'm joking.
It's getting to you, man.
Yeah.
What's funny, not to say that Logan is super white, but he is.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But as we all know, Logan is obsessed with pancakes.
Yep.
I mean, like, every 3 days there was a mixing bowl sitting in my kitchen sink that's like crusted over with pancake batter because Logan made pancakes for breakfast or whatever. It doesn't matter. Logan's never been to visit me at work.
Really?
That's.
I take offense to it. I'm upset a little bit. I've mentioned it. He just seems to not care. But like, we make good pancakes.
Yeah.
Logan
He
has never
knows.
had them.
He had them when he
he
came
went
out
to the snooze
here.
out here, and
Yeah,
not to the
but not to
snooze
mine.
that you work at.
And can I tell you, we live 3 blocks from the restaurant I work at.
Yeah.
Like, I could walk to work if I didn't feel unsafe as a woman in the morning. But
Now I'm just sad.
Well, but we live so close. Like, it wouldn't be hard at all. Logan has never come to get pancakes from us.
Really?
I don't know why.
I'll give him
that's
some,
a call out for him.
I'll be sure to give him some shit for that when I record that news you care about next week.
Good.
Good. But yeah, because when I was out there for RTX last year, before you were working at Snooze, Logan and I went and grabbed like brunch one day at some other place. I don't remember where.
Kirby Lane, I bet.
Yeah, Kirby Lane. Yeah, we had to try like 3 different locations, I think, or something before we finally found parking at one.
Probably.
But yeah, so we went there, but we passed by this Snooze, probably the one you work at, and I was like, oh hey, they got a Snooze out here, and he was like, yeah, they do, and he was super excited about it. But actually, you might have even been there just eating that morning, I think, or something. I feel like there was some kind of like relationship to you and Snooze, even though we weren't going there that day.
Might have been.
Yeah, so it was but yeah, and then so yeah, I highly recommend Snooze for anybody that has one nearby, because yeah, pancakes are great, eggs Benny are great, and yeah, just it's like I don't even catch that there's like loud music going on.
Well, they have the patio out there that I've always seen people sit at, so if
Yeah.
it's super loud in there, I wouldn't want to even sit inside.
Yeah.
Because I'm an old man and I like conversations.
Yeah, the problem is outside in Phoenix
Oof,
is
that's
often
true.
way hotter, so it's like, no, I'm just going to deal with the loud music. That's
Well,
fine.
let's just get day drunk then, and we won't we worry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Any other back to work stories to share there, Jazz?
I don't think so. Everyone's been nice so far, which is pleasant. It's been nice to see all my coworkers again. Um, yeah, that's kind of it.
I guess,
It's just
and
been.
if this is like too prying or something, you feel free to shut it down. But like, I'm curious because I feel like I've heard kind of two different stories of how people are like tipping servers and delivery people in the like in this stage, where some people who are basically like not tipping at all for like delivery drivers when they get the option to just drop things off and like have a no contact delivery. I'm hearing that, like, because they're not seeing the driver or the delivery person, they're tipping really low, and then personally I'm like super high tipping because I'm like, I know these people are going out there and saving me from having to go out into the world, so I'm tipping like 30 to 35 or 40% on a lot of my orders that are coming through. So I'm curious if there's been like a noticeable like difference in how your guys' customers are kind of like responding to the fact that you guys are open in that regard.
Are they being
Sure.
good people, or are they just committing the ultimate dick move, basically?
It seems like a toss-up so far. The first couple days we were open, because like I said, we've gotten steadily busier since Wednesday, and of course it's the weekend and it's Memorial Day weekend. We're gonna be way busier tomorrow than we were today. Even we were busy today. Like we did so well today that my boss popped a bottle of champagne at the end of the shift. I still had a table, and he was like, "We're drinking." And I was like, "Yeah." And he gathered the whole staff to do like a toast to how well we did, as like proof that Snooze was that we were great, which was cool. But
6 feet apart, right?
Yeah. Well, we were all wearing masks and gloves, and it's hard. It's hard when you're a staff, right? You just wanna. Our staff's very close, so it's difficult to social distance. Yeah, in the first couple days, people were really kind. I didn't have a single customer that even got on my nerves, which is rare for me because I have short fuse. And people tipped well. We're doing tip pool for right now, so like all the servers, the bartenders, and the hosts like split the combined tips.
Yeah.
And we've had, I've seen a couple people like tip $50. People have been nice. As we get busier, you're starting to get more of a.
They're falling back into their routine.
Yeah, well, just more of an accurate representation of the populace. Like not everyone is very kind and tips well, and so I've definitely had some groups, and there's a lot of stereotypes to some people when you're in the service industry. So like, if you get a table of 20-year-old kids, you're like, oh, cool.
Yeah, this is gonna suck.
I'm not gonna get tipped. Yeah, and maybe that's not fair, but I've also served a lot of 20-year-olds.
Yeah, I remember being in college and feeling bad when any server got whatever group of like theater kids I went out with afterwards, being like, okay, I'm definitely gonna tip well for like my portion, but I know I can't speak for everybody here.
Listen,
Exactly.
I'm ordering based solely off of what I know I can pay, plus tip, or not plus tip, plus tax, like what it'll probably end up being. You will get whatever I have left. That's my promise. If I have like $2.50 left out of my budget, you'll get the $2.50. If you get the 36 cents, that's what you get. I don't have any more money. Like, that's what it was like when I was that age. Like, just like
it's
I give you what I can. That was my whole thing. And now I can give a lot more.
As you grow up, you kind of learn maybe some etiquette, and I think there's a lot about the service industry that isn't widely known. And I wonder if people knew, like, I don't know, officially I get paid $2 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what my work is worth. So after tax, I'm basically working for free. Like, I'm kind of renting a space to make money in. There's just so much minutia of it, and I wonder if people knew all this stuff, like, maybe they would tip more, or maybe they wouldn't. I really can't. I can't speak for people. But, as more and more people come in, and as we get more customers and bigger parties and stuff like that, the tips are balancing out back to what was average, which is usually like 18 to 22% of the tab, depending on who it is, and we're all splitting that. So it's been okay.
Yeah.
I've had some rough customers. I had a customer yesterday who like paid for her and her friend, and gave me cash, and she was like, "Oh yeah, that's all you. Keep the change." And I never look until at least until I'm away from the table.
Yeah.
And it was like a $30 tab, and she tipped me 15 cents. But then,
Jeez.
which was cool. But then as they left, and it was like she was the last table of the day, but as they left, she was calling out. She's like, "You guys were so great. Thank you so much." And everyone was kind of laughing about it. It was like, that girl tipped me 0.5%.
Yeah.
But, like, I guess saying nice things pays my rent. Like, that's cool. It's just, like, people do that.
Yeah.
And you can't teach people how to treat servers. They just kind of have to learn or decide they're not gonna.
Yeah.
But I've had good experiences, too. And that's the toss-up with being a waitress or a bartender or whatever it is. Like, you're going to have some great people, and you're going to have some people that just you'd rather not have known.
Yeah, no, totally. I remember from my days in retail, kind of easily identifying with that adage of like everybody should work in retail and everybody should work in the service industry so that you understand what those people are going through. And then can just be more empathetic to them as a result. And I've personally never worked in service, but I know enough people that have that I'm like, yeah, I don't ever want to be like that person's worst part of their day. So,
and we appreciate it.
Yeah. So I try to do my part.
I've worked in food industry before, like food service industry, and yeah, there's a lot of things people just do not know about. Mm-hmm. There's some places that literally it's not even just like you are working to rent the space that you're going to hopefully make tips for. There's some places where you literally have like a weekly deduction from whatever pay the restaurant gives you for literally renting the space from them, and it's absolute nonsense. I was lucky enough that when I worked it depends, because it's either you make the minimum wage and you work in a place that you rarely get tips, or you work in a place where you make $2.50 an hour or just $2 an hour and you make your wages and tips at that point. And it's like it's a double-edged sword on either end of that, because it just sucks. Like working the food industry, like for service industry, in my experience, sucked, and I got out of it as soon as I could, which was just under 5 years. It's hard. It's hard work, and people who don't respect that, usually it's because either they never worked in it before, but I think the worst people I hate having to like, the worst thing ever is realizing that somebody who you thought was like really cool and really wonderful and awesome and fantastic, who has worked in the food industry before, like whether it's service, like some sort of service industry, and they still treat service people like trash, and it's like, oh, you're a complete garbage person. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
No, but it's. I'm glad that you're working at a place that at least is following those protocols right now, so you can stay safe, making your bullshit wages.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Cam, let's throw it over to you. Tell us about, you've been playing War of the Visions, the Final Fantasy Brave Exvius sequel, and this is a mobile game, right?
Yep, it is. It is a mobile game, and man, it's cool because I've never had to pay for like the NRG energy stuff once, which is cool. However, I have definitely I bought some of the microtransactions because some of the packages for them are cheap, and I have just about every single character that they've released for the game. It's not hard to get them all, and it's really more so like built out of like resource grinding. But what's really cool about this world, it takes place, if you're a Brave Exvius fan, then you are already familiar with the world of Lapis. This is a continent on Lapis that is essentially cut up between 5 or 6 major powers in the regards to nations. There's 3 very large nations, a holy city-state, and then a couple of small nations. And it's really cool because the way that the story starts off is basically everybody's constantly at each other's necks. There's a couple of like awkward alliances, whether it's between the nation of Finesse and the nation of Horn, allying because they're worried about the nation of Wezit taking advantage of. I'm just throwing out names at this point that mean absolutely nothing to people.
Yeah, I like go less into the details, Cameron.
Yeah. Anyway, but the really cool thing is it follows the story of 2 brothers. the twin princes of Leonis. And they're very different, but what I've loved about the game so far is, despite all their differences, despite their paths diverging, so far there seems to be a really, really deep love and respect for each other, and from all like the art, you see them like drawing swords against each other, so it's like I'm really curious to see where things are going to end up that we get to that point. It's cool, it's has a lot of intrigue, there's a lot of the kind of cool thing that... So it's built specifically to be reminiscent of Final Fantasy Tactics for the PlayStation. And because of that, the art style, the combat mechanics, a lot of it is based off of that. But what's really cool is they really embrace the idea that these different countries have different cultures and different like topography and climate and everything else. So there's not a set of characters that like are dressed identical or have the same kind of cultural identical, like whether it's dress, the way they talk, how like what they fight with. It's very, very cool in that there seems to be a lot of very on purpose diversity as far as the flair and flavor of everything goes. But it also has a really cool upgrade system that like you can either manually grind it, or you can use skip tickets that they give you at the beginning of the game, like candy, so it's easy just to kind of like grind out without actually having to do the grinding. And what's really cool is you can actually turn on the AI for kind of like menial battles that you don't want to have to deal with, and the AI actually does a really good job. So it's a really cool game. If you are interested at all in Final Fantasy games, I think that this story so far has been... There's some points in time with the story that it's not felt as compelling, but it also treats its story and characters very seriously, where characters act like their positions of society would dictate in a very interesting way, and kind of like the fallout of people's positions and this fateful meeting between the Prince of Leonis and the Princess of Horn when she's on her way to her wedding. So it's cool stuff. I like it a lot. Check it out. It's really, really cool.
Cool. Yeah, I went ahead and downloaded it to give it a shot myself. So I'll let you know, Cam, what I think of it. But yeah, very cool. I'm glad to see them kind of embracing the tactics kind of model again. I'm curious why they don't do it on in other mediums or avenues. Maybe this will be a game that eventually makes its way to Switch or something like that, and more people will get a chance to play it. Who knows?
And where I've spent all my money is 100% getting the crystals, because when they launched, they were doing a Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers event where you could get Ishtola or Thancred. However, they just are recently completing the Final Fantasy Tactics one, where you get Noble Ramza, Thunderbolt Cid himself, and then also what's his name? The Dark Knight from the beginning of the game.
Gafgarian?
Gafgarian, yeah. Those are 3 characters that you can unlock from their gacha mechanic, which is less gacha and more of just like RNG, like loot box stuff. But
yeah.
I've never felt super burned by it, because even if you get duplicates, they turn into resources needed to like level up the characters.
Yeah.
So it's nice. I never feel like I've wasted anything, because even if I don't get what I want, I still have resources that have definitely come in super handy later.
Cool. Kicking over to me as kind of an update from last week. I'm about halfway through the first season of Avatar now. Episode 15 is the last one I watched, which means I've watched The Blue Spirit, which is a thing that both Jazz and Cam were like, "Oh my God, you have you watched this one? It's great." And I was like, "I think maybe I don't know." And then I like looked back at the episode titles. I was like, "Oh yeah, I watched that one." Okay, I described it as the one with the frogs, which I think besmirched it a little bit in terms of like its reverence. Like I thought it was a cool episode, and
it's not like you besmirched its reverence.
Yeah,
we thought like you're like the thing you used to describe it is the one with the toads, and it's like
that was the element that stood out of me at that episode, because otherwise it was like, okay, like as soon as as soon as the character kind of gets introduced in how he's interacting with Aang, I was like, okay, I know who this is. So that
You
like
were just so casual about it. You were like, "Oh, the Toads one," and
Yeah.
Cameron and I were like, "Oh, we gotta. Don't tell him because it's all on you." And you were just like, "Oh, you mean this?" I'm like,
Yeah.
God, fuck,
It
yeah.
literally ends with Zuko and Aang setting up the friendship that would develop. Anyway, I can't spoil it. Anyway.
Well,
That in
I mean,
itself.
you clearly already have their
Yeah,
Cameron,
I mean,
so
that's
thanks.
fine.
But
Sorry,
that is
I
so.
put my foot in my mouth on that one. My apologies.
That's one of the things that I started to mention
Cut that bit out.
before we started recording, and you were like, "Oh, let's wait for it for the show." Is that it's weird coming to this for the first time, and I talked with this a little bit about with Christian on like over a couple tweets, because people are just very willy nilly about posting like Avatar spoilers right now.
Sorry, buddy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I like. It's fascinating because I'm seeing a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm like, okay, I guess I can assume where these characters are going based on this image I'm seeing, or like some of it has been like the one that Christian in particular posted was like GameSpot basically saying like name a better redemption story, we'll wait or whatever, and then it was a picture of a character, and I was like, oh well, I clearly know who that character is. It looks different than the character that I am currently seeing, but okay, now I guess I can assume that this character is going to get a redemption story.
That sucks.
And so yeah, there are elements like that, or I'm seeing like I saw like a cosplay side by side of a character that was in a very different look than what I'm currently seeing, but I can still identify it. Like so like I don't know when these changes are going to happen, but I've already basically been set up for them. And even off of like our conversation last week where you guys were talking about like shipping ships that like never actually happen, I'm like, okay, well I can deduce that some ships that you wouldn't think happen are going to happen, and then some that you'd think would happen don't. So like there's plenty. Like I'm coming at this already being like I'm along for the ride with these characters. I as I've talked about on many a show before, I never really ascribe to the like spoiler. Like a spoiler is not going to ruin my experience. So like seeing these things or getting hints of these things. Yeah, I mean, somebody basically tweeted out like people getting mad about Avatar spoilers. The show was on the air 10 years ago, and I'm like. I responded to them. I was like, I'm not mad about this at all. Like, I totally understand.
Yeah.
But also, like just like with Final Fantasy VII Remake recently, like there's an easy understanding that a lot of new people are going to be coming to this series for the first time, given its new availability on Netflix. Like myself, a lot of people came to Final Fantasy VII for the first time. So I think like it's really easy to respect that there's that and not post spoilers, or post spoilery things. And so kind of my argument against like there are very few reasons I would think that people are posting spoilers other than to like. I mean, I'm sure it's not always to ruin it for the people who are watching it right now, but the fact that like GameSpot posting stuff like that, it's like, okay, clearly they're doing it because SEO is showing, hey, everybody's watching Avatar right now, and so they're going to post Avatar things that they're not going to care about spoilers, and it's a little like, hey, you didn't have to tweet that thing out, but whatever. So I'm kind of like. Again, so setting up that they have a big friendship or whatever. Cam, thanks.
I'm sorry.
Like I already, based on like the images I've seen, I was already being set up for that turn, that character arc for Zuko. So it's not like it's not a big spoiler for me, just given that it's already been potentially spoiled, and even it's the kind of thing that I'm sure I've even seen those kinds of spoilers in a time where I wasn't watching the show and just like saw it, didn't care about it or anything like that. Like I always go back and think, I remember when the first season of Westworld was coming out, like every Sunday people were talking about that show and talking about how they were amazed at how like much story they were packing into each week of that show, and how like, the 2 episodes worth of a show would be stretched out into a whole season arc for other shows. But like none of it really registered until I sat down and actually watched the first season of Westworld myself a while later. So like I had probably been spoiled on things, but I didn't realize I'd been spoiled on things. So I'm kind of feeling a lot of the same stuff with Avatar here. But I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time with it. It's a fun show. I'm enjoying the ever expanding cast of characters. As I messaged you guys in our Slack channel when I watched the episode with Jet.
Trevor Starkey, 5:28 p.m. at the people in reference to this. Okay, I just met Jet. He definitely fucks.
Yeah, and that was the beginning of that episode. By the end of that episode, or even very as soon as I messaged that, I was like, oh, this is gonna turn into like a Khaleesi situation where he's gonna like turn and he's gonna be the bad guy of this episode or something. And sure enough, that's pretty much what happens. And I was like, I don't care, he still fucks.
Here's the thing though, Jet is. I've realized this while getting ready for the podcast. I realized Jet was probably the first fictional fuckboy for a lot of girls out there and a lot of guys.
Oh, I was gonna say that, Cam. Jet's such a fuckboy.
He is. He's such a fuckboy.
Yeah.
Oh, and like later on, he's just even more of a fuckboy. Like it's great. He's a great the show. Even if you know where things are going, Trevor, you have an idea. The journey of getting there is so good. It's not going to deprive you of anything.
Oh yeah.
I could literally bullet point how the last episode goes and spoil that for you, and it wouldn't change the development that you would see overall.
Yeah, exactly, and
I'm not going to after I just put my foot in my mouth. But.
Well, that's what I always kind of say about spoiler culture is like an endpoint does not at all reflect the rest of the journey. So like the fact that I'm in the journey with these characters and I will see kind of their gradual change over there, even if I knew how the story ends, just like with The Last of Us 2 spoilers that are out there, even if I knew what those spoilers were, it's not going to, take away from the other 20 hours I spend with those characters or something like that. So yeah, I'm enjoying Avatar season 1 so far. And it's weird, or it's interesting still because like there are some characters that I know just from the imagery that are definitely going to come back and come into play. But then there are others that don't. Like Jet could have been like a complete one-off character, but he was like introduced and set up in a way that I was like, okay, I feel like this is going to be an ongoing, like he will be back. His guerrilla tactics style of fighting will probably come back into play. But other characters I don't know if they're all going to come back and do that. So it's interesting, just as a first pass, knowing what is and what isn't important. And I'm probably getting it wrong here and there. But yeah, it's fun. I'm having a good time with it so far. So yay. Avatar. Before I dive into anything else I've been doing, I want to throw it back over to you, Jazz. And real quick, before we dive into your quarantine mystery that you want to kind of discuss, as another follow-up to last week's episode, you were doing, after we recorded last week, you were going to go and do a quarantine birthday with a friend of yours. How'd that go?
It was fun. There was a Zoom call with a lot of people, just all kind of chatting, which I sort of sat and watched. Because, well, look, here's the thing. You get more than 6 people in a Zoom call, it's not worth it to talk. Like,
yeah, it's chaos.
You show up and you like wave or whatever, and you just sit there and drink, and that's fine. So I was there for that. But then a couple hours later, we all broke for dinner or whatever. But we did a little Zoom like Jackbox night, and that was a lot of fun.
Nice.
He had a good time, so that's really all you can ask for. Yeah.
Very cool. So yeah, tell us about this quarantine mystery that you have that you wanted to bring to the table.
Oh, of course, yeah. So let me start by asking you guys a question.
Okay.
Who was your first best friend?
My first best friend was a guy named Vinny Vikiti out here in Phoenix. Our moms worked together, and so I met him. He was a year older than me. Lived in a completely different city. Like he lived in Apache Junction when I lived in Scottsdale, but because our parents worked together and we were about the same age, we became friends and were friends probably until like middle school, high school. I would go out and visit him and like spend the night at his house for a weekend, or he would come and visit me. And I talked about him a little bit in my I think in my Final Fantasy VII review, because like I would go to his house and play that game before I ever had the original game myself.
So when did the meth get him?
No, he actually. So by the time we were in like late elementary school or middle school, he had moved to Mesa. So
okay,
he escaped the outskirts of Apache Junction methness.
You should, sorry,
and also his dad like was a like a prison warden, I think. Not a warden, but like a prison guard. And so I imagine that wouldn't have gone over well in the house.
No, I mean here's the thing, Jazz. You don't know. I said that on purpose, And the way Trevor didn't bat an eye at it is because Trevor and I both know what Apache Junction is known for.
Cameron, you forget that I went to University of Arizona.
Oh, you did. That's right. But
went
you
to
were
college
down in
with
Tucson, though.
I went to college with a lot of Arizona State locals. Learned a lot.
Oh, so you're fully aware. And for our audience out there who doesn't know, Apache Junction is a land of cars that have no tires and methamphetamine.
I mean, their house growing up, they were in a kind of a manufactured home, just out in the desert. The desert was their backyard. We would go out and they like to hunt and do stuff, and there were like javelinas just out roaming around, so we had to like be careful to avoid them. But we would go and I first shot a gun out there because they would line up bowling pins against like a stack of hay bales.
Hells yeah.
And we would shoot at the bowling pins, just out in the desert. Just yep. So that's
Apache
like
Junction.
those are the memories I have of going out to Apache Junction when I was a kid.
And if you're weirded out because it's like, javelinas, aren't those pigs? A javelina will fuck you up.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, they are terrible.
Especially when you're like a 7-year-old kid and they're basically like half your size or more. Like imagine being a little bit taller than Pumbaa and Pumbaa just running at you in a rage. It's pretty much the same thing. Javelina, warthog, whatever.
And gosh, they smell terrible.
Oh yeah, yeah. But
So
yes,
this is a very Arizona-centric podcast.
Arizona's like bad. Anyway.
There are parts, yeah. So that was my best friend, Vinny. Growing up, when by the time high school came around, we just kind of were living our own separate lives. Last I saw him was, weirdly enough, like when I was in college. I was promoting a show at our First Fridays event, which is basically like a once a month thing in Phoenix, where like a whole bunch of like artists kind of put their like galleries out down on a street downtown, and people just kind of walk up and down and peruse the art and stuff. And I was there promoting like a musical dance fun comedy show that we were doing, and I just like saw this guy pass by. I was like, Vinny, I probably the first time I'd seen him in like 5 years, and I have not seen him since, and that was like 10 years ago now.
Did he answer when you said Vinny?
Oh yeah. We caught up for about like 5 minutes, and then he was there with a date, and then kind of like went off and continued living his own little life. I'm still friends with him on Facebook and stuff, so I occasionally see what he's up to and what he's doing. I believe he has a kid now. So, but yeah, I like that was my first best friend growing up. To answer your question, Jazz.
Yeah.
How about you, Cam?
Cameron?
So when you say best friend, so it's tough because I had a best friend when I was like at a certain age, but when my family moved, no longer in any communication whatsoever with him. And it was probably only for about a year. Does that count as first best friend?
I mean, yeah, knee-jerk reaction, right? It's whoever comes to mind when you hear the question, who is your first best friend,
Huh. Honestly, if I were to say John, I don't have enough memories of him to say, like, to give you any description of him whatsoever. I don't even remember what he looks like, honestly. Like,
How old were you?
We were like 3.
Okay.
Like 2 or 3. Like, he was like my toddler, early childhood friend. So I guess my best friend, like my first best friend, is Holden Hewish, who we grew up around the corner from each other. Our moms had met each other at church, and I was kind of taken over to their house to do a play date because they had a son who was my age, Holden, and then they had another son who was like 2-3 years younger than us, and would kind of toddle after us while we were playing. And for the next probably for like the next 12 years of our lives, we went from being like best friends to hardly talking to each other at all, similar to Trevor. He had a couple older brothers he had 2 older brothers and 2 older sisters, and so as somebody who had like older siblings as well, it kind of all jumbled together, like things you pick up from siblings, I would pick up from like his siblings a lot of times. His older brothers were very athletic. They taught us to play, like we would do pickup games of baseball, soccer, basketball, all sorts of stuff growing up. Looking at me now, you would not imagine it, but I had a very athletic childhood. I wasn't very good at it, which is why I didn't pursue it. But I spent every day, we would spend every day, we would be able to start spending time together roughly around 8 a.m. I wasn't allowed to go over to his house any earlier, and he wasn't allowed to go over to my house any earlier than that. And we'd play together till 6, 7 o'clock at night, and just kind of like head back to our respective homes for dinner and night. But, yeah, no, like, thinking back on it now, wow, like, there is a lot that Holden and I, like, we are joined at the hip for, our enormous amounts of our childhood. But yeah, no, it was, he's not married. He has a handsome white pit bull, and it's funny, the last time I saw him, it was when, the house, my great aunt's house that I was living in, flooded. The washer machine broke and flooded the house. And the emergency rapid response team for, like, the contractor who do the dry out for it was the emergency response person for that night was Holden. And so just, like, all of a sudden Holden Hewish picks up the phone, and because I called the number, and it's just like, and he goes, yes, and I was like, yeah. Oh, no, I wasn't the one that called him. It was my aunt who called him. And from there, just, like, he came into the house, and it was, like, it was weird, because, like, my great-aunt lived around the block from us. And so, like, we spent a ton of time over there as well. And he was, like, walking through the house for the first time in, like, I don't know, like, 20 years, maybe? And just, he's like, I have so many memories here. I'm like, yeah, and we just kind of talked a little bit. We didn't keep much in touch after that, just because lives are very different. But, yeah, wow, that's weird. Sorry, you asking this question has kind of, like, reopened, like, a box of memories that I didn't know I had.
Sure.
So why do you ask about our best friends?
Yeah.
Our first best friends, Jazz?
Well, I loved your stories, and I love the closure you both got. You know, you saw them after the fact. Here's the thing. I encountered this question recently. Saw it on some social media, whatever. And I knew instantly. I was like, oh my god, it was Dan. Dan was my best friend when I was, like, 4. We were in preschool together. We did everything together. All of our preschool activities. I don't know what you do in preschool. I think we learned Spanish at one point. I just remember he was there.
The hell?
My only preschool memory, which I feel like I didn't even really attend preschool, but I went to something where we had to sing 10 Little Indians.
Oh.
And I'm just like that's a thing that, like, it's a memory that sticks with me. And yeah, I look back and I'm like, wow, like, you know, 89 or whatever was still a pretty racist time.
Yeah. I went to Mrs. Billings' preschool program. She is somebody who not only have I been through that program, my little sister went through her program, and then 2 of my nieces and my nephew have all gone through her program. Wow. She doesn't do it anymore. She's retired, but she was a phenomenal preschool teacher who would just have a little class, and at the end of every year you graduated, you got a little wear cap, and there'd be a little ceremony. You got a roll of paper, and she would take you on field trips to fire stations, to hospitals, and also teach you your basic numbers, your letters, all sorts of stuff. It was an amazing program that I was in before I got kicked out, because for some reason when I was 4.5, I grew a really big mommy phase. I was just not wanting to leave my mother's side for some reason. I don't know. But I ended up, my mom stopped taking me to it because I would just sit outside after she dropped me off and cry until Mrs. Billings would call my mom to come pick me back up. So that was the thing. I don't know. So
Dan from preschool.
Yeah, Dan from preschool. Sorry, I was that went to a weird place for me. I'm sorry.
Kids, man. I went to a fairly wealthy preschool. My family's not exactly well off, but my parents owned a landscaping company and had a lot of rich clients, and they're both very charismatic, so they had a lot of rich friends. So I got into this preschool, which is why we learned Spanish and a bunch of other shit. So Dan was my best friend. We had sleepovers. I remember being at his house and playing board games and eating a whole pack of Big League Chew. He was the only boy at my 5th birthday party, besides my younger cousin Mikey, who was 3.
That doesn't count.
Oh, yeah. We went bowling. I remember it vividly. I wore a butterfly dress. All the adults complimented Dan on his bowling stance, which was weird, but it happened. But But so here's the thing about this, and I have all these fond memories. Now both of you guys, I asked who your best friend was. You came up with a first and last name.
Yeah, you don't remember Dan's last name at all?
No, I was 4. I never needed to know it. So,
yeah.
I'm like, now I'm thinking about it, and I'm driving myself crazy. Oh, I'm driving myself crazy. I think about it for like 2 hours. I don't know his last name. It's very possible I never knew his last name. So I'm like, all right, okay.
Is it possible that he didn't exist?
No, because I have pictures of him.
Okay.
Like, I texted my family, and I'm like, hey, do you remember this kid's last name? And, my mom's like, oh, no, he was a great kid. You guys were such good friends. Maybe Dad remembers. Dad doesn't remember. So I'm like, I know we have pictures of it. Like, do we have yearbook photos from preschool? Like, it was a rich white preschool. Maybe they took they did take class photos. Maybe they labeled them. I don't know. No, we don't have those. So I'm, like, losing my mind. I don't know this kid's last name. And my sister jumps in, and she's like, all right, well, let me ask the preschool teacher. My sister went to the same preschool. And she just friends everybody she's ever met on Facebook, I guess. So she hits up the preschool teacher.
I don't want to meet your sister.
I
don't want to be friends with her on Facebook.
No, she's not. Actually, the only person she's not friends with is me. So she hits up the preschool teacher, and the preschool teacher's like, "Oh, I remember Dan. You guys were such good friends. Blah blah blah. Whatever." Like, she gives me like, "This is his mom. He's a woodworker now. All this shit." I'm like, "Okay, sure."
Whoa.
But she's like, "But I don't know that I remember his last name." So now I've brought my family into this. Now my family's on a mission. You get, quarantine, right? We're all bored. You got nothing to do. And they're on it now. So now my family, I go and take a Zoom call. My sister's like, I'm gonna go ahead and message the principal of the preschool, like the owner of the preschool. Because she's friends with her on Facebook too. And I'm like, sure, okay. I go and, I start playing jackpot games with friends on Zoom. I check back like half an hour later. My family has lost their mind. They're in the chat, my mom has checked the yellow pages, my sister is Googling it, they're on Facebook, my sister's like, it could be this particular Dan, or like this family because the mom's name is the same and she has 2 kids but neither of them named Dan, but maybe there's a third one that doesn't have Facebook. Like, they're in this bitch. They're pulling up home locations, they give me like home phone numbers, my sister's like, I tried calling and there was no answer so I left a message. They're losing their minds about this. Because they think they know who this kid is, right? Well,
that's going a little far.
Yeah, and I've been gone for like 20 minutes, and I came back and was like, guys, maybe we didn't have to, like, I appreciate it, but maybe this was not the way. Well, we hear back from the principal of the preschool finally. And she's like, no, that's not him. I do remember him, but that wasn't his last name or whatever. Like, that's the person you found is not it. So basically my family has been just harassing this random family 2 towns over. But on the basis of nothing. They're just like, that might be him, and they just started stalking this family. It wasn't him.
You need to tell me there's a resolution to this, because I literally have Facebook pulled up right now.
Oh, I'm getting
and
it.
I am ready.
Oh, sure,
I am ready for this.
Oh, sure. Yeah, the resolution is, my sister's like, well, I'm going to see if there's any, like, old files, or, like, maybe they kept student data from a preschool from 98. They did not. And that was it. My mom found the pictures of us from preschool.
Wait.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that a violation of FERPA?
Yes, but since no one technically gave my sister the files, I guess not. And also, I didn't ask. It's really above my pay grade. But yeah, so the end of this story...
Well, actually, it's a preschool, right?
Yeah. Well, no, it doesn't exist anymore. So it was
Okay.
In the late 90s and the early aughts, it was called Little Sprouts. And now it doesn't exist, as far as I'm aware.
It might actually... I don't know if preschools fall under FERPA even, so you might be in the clear on
I
that
have
one.
not a clue. The end of the story is that we never found Dan. I have pictures of him. My mom sent them.
What?
And yeah, that's the end of it. And I've been losing my mind about it ever since because I don't know his last name. And I want that resolution you guys had. I want to find him 20 years later. It's been 2 decades because we were best friends, and then we went to kindergarten in our school districts, and he did not live in the same town as me, and I never saw him again. So I just wanted to...
So you did not go to kindergarten with him?
No, because kindergarten for me was part of my elementary school. So I went in town. I went to my elementary school. And I assume it was the same for him, but I don't know because I didn't maybe after that 5th birthday party, but certainly after preschool ended, I didn't see him again. And I haven't seen him in
There's-
2 decades, and I'm looking, but I don't remember his last name. So that's my mystery.
Jazz, he could be so hot right now.
I mean, I'll never know, Cam. That's the thing.
We gotta find him.
But yeah, I mean, if you're listening, you're about 25, and your name is Dan, and you went to Little Sprouts preschool. What up, dude? We were friends once.
He could be so hot. He's a woodworker.
No, but
his mom
wrong,
is a woodworker, right?
That was the wrong person
that was a different-
entirely. That was just like a family.
Oh.
It was all a wild goose chase. Yeah.
I thought like the preschool teacher told you guys that he was a woodworker.
Yeah, she thought he was. She's kind of loony. I remember that. She was very like off her nut.
She handed over like children's student records to just somebody else.
She thought she was. That was the thing. She was completely like she thought she was right, and she was completely wrong. You know, she was texting like she was like, "This is the mom, and this is the kid, and this and that," and she was just so off the mark. She just thought she was right. She was just listing random people that she knew.
So the story reminds me, and I want to basically because I can double down on a childhood like early birthday story that then came full circle years and years later. In elementary or in kindergarten, I invited like my whole class. And the one person I really cared about that came was a girl named Chelsea, because she was the girl I had a huge crush on when I was like 5 or 6 or whatever. And she came, and we all had a great time. We played like hot potato and pin the nose on the clown, and it's like somebody gave me a bright pink skateboard that I never learned how to use. And my next door neighbors gave me a hamster, which my parents flipped the shit out of because they're like, "What? Like, why are you giving our kid a living thing they have to take care of?" But like everybody at the party was like, "That's the coolest! Oh my god!" And so yeah, my whole kindergarten class was there. And then first grade, Chelsea moved away and went to a different school, and I didn't think I'd ever see her again. And then flash forward to high school. Where like all of like the feeder schools in the district basically fed back into my high school, and I like ended up having sophomore level Spanish with her, and was like, wait, Chelsea and like we kind of had this like moment where like we remembered each other and reconnected. One of the things she still had that like she remembered that birthday party from was my dad ran like a little kitschy business that he would do on the weekends called Photogenics, and he would take people's pictures and he would put them on like shirts and calendars and mugs and stuff, and as like a giveaway thing for all of the kids who came to my birthday party, he took everybody's pictures and put them on calendars, and she still had that calendar with like her kindergarten picture on it for whatever year it was. And like she even brought it in and showed it to me at one point, and so like we reconnected all these years later, and then like even there, like in high school, we didn't really run in the same circles or anything like that. But I finally confessed my crush to her, like in like years later after college or something. And she was like, "Oh, that's the cutest thing. We totally should have dated or something." I was like, "Yeah, duh." Like I know that now. But now she is off and living happily in Chicago and whatnot. So another one I got like a fun full circle closure with many years later.
Nice.
That your story just reminded me of. It was like, yay, fun stories there. So shout out to Chelsea, shout out to Vinny, shout out to Dan, and shout out to which one was yours, Cam? Holden. Shout out to best friends, long forgotten, some more than others. Well, good luck in continuing that search, because I'm sure it's now going to just live with you. And now
welcome to my
now
hell,
it's definitely
Cam.
going to stick with Cam.
Good. I hope everyone that
he's-
hears this podcast is like, "Fuck, what's that kid's last name?" Because I don't know, and so no one can know.
Here's
I mean, this feels like one of those things that like you could put out like the picture on Twitter and be like, "Hey, I just need to know this kid's last name. You were Dan. You went to this preschool. Please share until we can find this guy."
Trevor,
and then like,
I have thought
and then you
about
could
it.
tweet that out and
Do
just
it.
hope it goes viral.
Yeah, once this podcast comes out, I will. I just like I was talking to my best friend about it too, and of course, like every friend I've told, they were like, "We're invested now." They ask about it still, like they updates, And I'm like, this is how this is my supervillain origin story, right? Like I was close to the cusp of just going full blown nuts, but this is it. This is what drives me to the brink of insanity and pushes me like just gently off into the abyss of being a bad person. So I don't know. If anyone ever finds Dan, let him know that all the destruction is his own fault.
I need to know 3 things about the photos, your childhood photos of him. One, was he a pudgy little fat boy?
He has round. Let me pull him up. He definitely has round cheeks, but not too much. I think I'm rounder than he is.
He doesn't have the baby rolls?
Hold on. Well, no, I mean, we were, 4 or 5, so he was not tall.
Yeah,
but like, let me see.
Yeah, but, a fat kid's a fat kid, you know what I mean?
He was not a fat kid, no. He definitely had round cheeks, but he already had a chin coming in at 5.
At 5? Ooh.
Yeah. Big ears,
okay.
though. Okay. Question 2.
Question 2?
These pictures are so bad. Sorry.
Second question. It was a preschool for, like, well-to-do people, so were his parents also, like, well-to-do?
Yes, I do. I vaguely remember, like, the interior of their house. It was nice.
Okay. The third thing I'm going to ask is, were there any well-known, like, in the distinct area around which you lived, or around the town that he lived, are there any distinct, notable, like, young male preparatory academies?
I guess St. John's Prep, which was in Andover, which Bo Burnham went to, because he grew up like 2 towns from me. That was the only all-boys academy in the area. There were plenty of private schools.
Okay.
It was small-town New England. Like, you could throw a stone at a private school from anywhere you stood, but St. John's was the only one that was all-male.
Okay.
So Cam's just going to stalk that high school Facebook.
That's fine. Someone has to find him. Like, it doesn't have to be me, but...
Fourth thing I now have to ask, does anybody know if Bo Burnham's first name is actually Dan?
I would shit blood. Also, he's too old. He's too old, so it's not him, and he's from the wrong town. I don't remember where this kid was from, like, Boxford or something. Anyway, okay. It's not Bo Burnham.
Bo Burnham's first name is Robert. Robert Pickering Bo Burnham.
Yeah, definitely
that makes
not
sense.
him. Pickering.
That makes sense.
Wow, that is...
Born in 1990.
Pickering is some
he's
old white New England shit.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, like, especially, middle name. Yeah. I mean, already. Oh, of the Andover Burnhams?
Yeah. That's the one. Oh, God.
Oh, yes, young Pickering. He had the same first name as his father, so
he likes to go by Bo. We don't want to talk about it. He's doing a YouTube thing.
Pretty much.
Well, I wish you all the best in finding answers to your Dan mystery here, Jazz.
I appreciate it.
Cameron, before I throw it over to you for this week's Overwatch update, I just want to touch base a little bit on the other things that I've been doing. One, I don't remember what kicked it off. I think somebody, Brandon Gann, friend of the show, tweeted out one of those, like, 5 shows, tag 5 people kinds of things on Twitter and tagged me on it. And I was like, I hate these things, but I'll do it because I like Brandon. And so I looked at like 5 shows. I don't remember what 5 I ended up going with. I think like Scrubs, Parks and Rec. I think like The Wire's an honorable mention. Futurama's on there. But one of the ones I put on there was Chuck. Oh yeah, it was Chuck and Community were the other 2. And I, having just rewatched all of Community, I was like, it's time for me to go through and do a rewatch of Chuck. So in addition to like Avatar, I've been bouncing back and forth between Avatar and Chuck. I've watched the first season of Chuck, and I just like, that is a fun show. I enjoy that show. I'm glad we got 5 seasons of that show. So I look forward to continuing to go along with that journey. And I'm glad like that like Zach Levi has gone and gotten to do some really cool and great things, including apparently meet Logan at like one of the restaurants in Austin at some point. He told me that story on some show we were on.
What?
He was working a shift and Zach Levi was there like filming something, I guess, and like
Logan?
Logan met him, I guess, in passing.
That has never come up.
Oh yeah, chat with him about it. I don't know what they were filming at the time. It might have been Shazam. I don't know. But yeah, he kind of mentioned it, and it wasn't like a huge big thing. It was just kind of like he recognized who it was, and thought it was cool that he was there. Anyway, so yeah, been watching Chuck. It's a lot of fun. I don't know if either of you guys have ever watched that show, but
yes, it's very good.
Yeah.
So fun action spy comedy from the what was that, like late aughts, early 2010s maybe. It was one of those, much like Community, it was one of those like perpetually on the bubble shows that eventually got saved by Subway for at least a season, because like the fans just were like, yeah, we'll buy Subway if you help sponsor the show. So shout out to Subway for saving a couple of my very favorite shows of all time. And yeah, just enjoying that. I'd forgotten that like the first season was only like a 13 episode season, so when I got to like the season finale for season 1, I was like, oh yeah, okay, we're already moving on to season 2. Cool. But yeah, fun show, and a lot of the fun comedy and action still holds up, because it was already a show like dripping in nostalgia and love of nostalgia stuff. So yay. And then a couple games that I've been playing. One is called What the Golf, and this, Jazz, is definitely something I think you and Logan can add to your list of potential Jazz Let's Plays, because there's like a 2-player co-op mode that might be some fun. It is basically it's a golf game with a very fun sense of humor. Every little course basically ends in a weird pun, depending on what you're doing. Like the first round is basically like you do a normal like mini golf kind of thing, but then like the second one, when you go to swing the club and hit the ball, the club is the thing you end up kind of moving and it goes flying. Like there are instances where you switch to like a soccer ball or something, or like so it's like one of them is get a hole in one, and the little caption that happens at the end is hole in one, and then like another course will be, instead of the hole being a hole, the hole is a giant one, and you're basically just trying to get the ball into the one, and it gives you a hole in one, but one not spelled out or something like that. And so yeah, it's just a very quirky, charming, funny little game with that's constantly playing with its different mechanics and just how it's even presented. Like there'll be some homages to like Mario. Like there's a hole where like a couple of the holes turn into weird side scrolling golf hole, and so it'll be like, okay, yep, this is clearly a Mario 1 level. You just have to get to the flag at the end, basically. So yeah, it's a very charming little Switch game. It also had come out on Apple Arcade back when like Apple Arcade launched, I think. So if you have an iPhone and want to do that, it's out there as well for you. But I'm playing it on Switch and having a good fun time with it. So highly recommend checking that one out. And then Maneater is the other one. Maneater I played a little bit of at PAX East back when we could actually go to things like PAX East. I got to play that, and this is a game where you play. Basically, it's an RPG game where you basically play as a shark. That is the more or less the subject of a what are the like catching? I don't remember, like the reality TV shows that are about like fishing.
Like Deadliest Catch and
yeah, Deadliest Catch. So there's basically the Maneater is the Deadliest Catch kind of parody show that's in this, and you're basically in like a bayou kind of area, and you kind of, the game starts with you playing as a shark, kind of running around and getting tutorialized and teaching you the mechanics, and you go and you can like flop around on land, and so you can like hop up onto a beach and eat humans, and as you eat people, your like wanted level rises, so it's a little Grand Theft Auto like in that regard. And once your wanted level reaches a certain amount, bounty hunters will start coming out at you, and they'll try and shoot you and stuff. And the big bounty hunter shark guy in this is a guy called Scaly Pete, and so the tutorial ends with Scaly Pete catching you, and then like gutting you, and it turns out you've been playing as like the mom of the like main character, and the baby shark that you end up playing as like eats off his hand and like gets thrown into the water. But now you have a taste for blood, and you're out to like get vengeance on Scaly Pete for killing your mother. And so like as that shark, you kind of grow and play, and you get like weird power level ups. Like you get like shock kind of abilities that'll kind of stun creatures that you bite at. You'll get bony fin scale kind of things that'll like make you extra resilient for like when other things attack you, and then there's a shadow kind of upgrade path as well, that is more for like stealth and sneaking around things, I think, and also kind of involves like it will poison things that you bite and chomp at. And so you're just kind of going through like section by section of this town, like wreaking havoc and destroying things, and having like, there's collectibles and stuff. But yeah, it's just a fun, like, it's one of those fun kind of mindless games. There's a ton of crazy fun Easter eggs. One of the collectibles that you can get is basically like tourist trap signs, and this bayou is basically like half underwater, so there's like just a ton of stuff under the water that you're out there locating, including like there's a Arrested Development reference in that, like, one of the things you can find underwater is a banana stand, and the little caption that'll come up is like, "There's always money in there," and it, yeah, just fun little Easter eggs and teases and stuff. I came across earlier today the boat from Waterworld, and they kind of like do a tongue-in-cheek joke about Waterworld. There was, I saw 3 giant clamshells underwater, and Chris Parnell is playing like the narrator for the fake reality show, and he kind of talks about like in the not too distant future, somebody will come across these 3 seashells, and it will revolutionize, toilet hygiene or something like that, in reference to, I think, is it Demolition Man, that in the future, like, instead of toilet paper, people use 3 seashells, something like that. Anyway, it's just like littered with fun pop culture dumb references, and the game is just fun, mindless, like go around, chomp sea creatures or chomp humans, and kind of like clear an area of the map, get the collectibles, and then kind of move on to the next area. So having a lot of fun with that one. Yeah, it's just a dumb fun. Like, it's not a great game, and there's definitely not enough story there for me to give it like a super high score if I were to grade it. But based on what I've played so far, it's like one of those solid like 7 or 8 kind of scores. It's a good to great, just fun, mindless kind of time. So that's my thoughts on Maneater. But yeah, I will then throw it over to you, Cameron, to close us out with some Overwatch May Melee, like whatever the updates are there on Overwatch.
I have something more important to talk about. So
okay.
I'm about to, in the Jazz, please look at the chat. I'm posting a list of last names of Dan's that I've found. I don't feel comfortable revealing his last name to the general public before we have confirmed.
All right.
I did use Trevor's entire time he was talking about Maneater to be looking for Dan.
I wondered why.
Yeah.
Cam, like, I have the chat just pulled up, and
like,
it just kept saying, like, Cam's typing, and then it would stop. And then I'd be like, Cam's typing, and then it would stop. What's happening?
I love that the first one is just Mabbit, and I'm like,
listen, I'm
is that,
fully
like,
aware of what it sounds like.
I feel like Cameron's just making that one
Look all
up.
these kids up now.
You would think so, however, it's actually the first one that pulled up when I did my search criteria.
What did you search
Are they,
for? Okay,
like-
I don't see any Dan Mabbits that
so-
are even close to my area.
I mean, I'm
Okay,
curious why the only, like, you've only given us M's.
I noticed that.
I'm not sure as to why. Oh, you know what?
Did you have Dan M as in your search functionality? So
No, MA is in Massachusetts.
Oh.
Because I was going geography-based, but also with local schools. So, let's try doing that with...
Seattle.
Okay.
We're getting... No, because now I'm just getting people with the last name of the same town that you mentioned.
The search is real. What town did I mention?
Buxton?
Oh, he's not from Boxford. He's from I'm not gonna remember. It was one of the, like, rich kid towns near me.
Near Andover?
No, well, yeah, kinda.
Google rich kid town near Andover.
They're all rich kid towns.
No, don't actually do that, Google.
Google's like, got you.
Sorry, my Google started responding. Stop it. Stop beeping.
Google Maps.
So I will continue my independent research.
I'm glad we're all in it.
Because I was like,
I do not know why, but I feel it is imperative that I find out who he is, because I need to know. And Trevor, I need your help as well. I need us to put together, because here's something to point out.
I don't care enough about this.
Holden turned out kind of hot, and I want to see which of the 3 of us had the hotter childhood best friend.
Oh, interesting. Oh, maybe it was Boxford.
So
I might have been on
so
with that.
young cute kid version will rank that, and then adult how they ended up looking will rank that as well.
I'm loving this game that we're playing. This is fun. I hope we find him.
Trevor, you said you're friends with him on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I think that's an easy get for
I
you.
mean,
Trevor
you're gonna potentially find two though, because it was Big Vinny and Little Vinny, the dad and the
That should
son.
be easy to
The
figure
son
out.
was a junior. Oh yeah, I mean, like I'm just saying, if you only looked at the name, you might find the wrong one.
Trevor, I'm not doing independent research on your childhood best friend. I'm doing it. This is solely for Jazz.
I mean, yeah, that's the
You
thing.
have
Like,
access
I'm
to
sure.
yours, I have access to mine. We can figure this out. Jazz is the person who is like the lost part of the equation. We have to solve for X. X is Dan's last name. We have to find it.
It's a weird day when I just kind of wish you would have just talked about the Overwatch League stuff.
God, you're welcome.
I don't know how far I've fallen that is something that I'm like, oh, why don't go down this rabbit hole, Cameron.
Oh,
It's too late, Trevor. I was already walking down at the moment. The moment Jazz mentioned this friend Dan and mentioned all these specific things, my first thought was Dan doesn't actually exist.
okay. Well, I have pictures. I'll send them.
No. Please do. Actually, that would definitely help me with my search.
And
Additional,
use one of those apps that ages him up,
Yeah,
and
2
so that'll
decades.
help you in
Cameron,
yeah.
You think
I
I'm
found,
joking?
by the way,
I'm going to do this.
Cameron, it wasn't Boxford. He grew up in Wenham. Yes,
Wenham?
like Hamilton,
Okay.
Wenham, but without the Hamilton part. That probably only lands for anyone from Massachusetts, so I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
I mean,
means
it meant
nothing to
something
me.
to yeah, he
Wenham.
grew up in Wenham, which was also listen. Pretty much every town in that area was a rich town, so it's all the same shit.
Also, I appreciate that they're not so like New England. It's like we're rich, but we're not going to name our towns anything gauche
Oh, that's not
because
true.
it's all super.
I grew up near a town
I mean,
named
Wenham is literally Wenham. Like Wenham.
I grew up near a town named Magnolia, though, and Manchester by the Sea. Although that used to be Manchester, Essex, and people would call it Mansex, and that's why they changed it.
What are the odds that it's Dan Bernal, your North Shore real estate resource? Because that was the first thing that came up with Wenham, Mass.
I mean,
Dan.
how
We're all
old does he
involved.
look?
We are all involved.
I have
Oh,
no
well,
idea.
then we'll never
But it's Dan. It's his website, danbernal.com.
Interesting.
Looking to see. Yeah, it looks like he's. I'm not seeing a picture of him. I'm just seeing like all of the super like $1 million plus houses that he's apparently representing in
Good
the
for
area.
him.
These houses are tiny. How are they $1 million?
Because of location.
Cause rich people.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's
No.
well, look. Let me know if you find it.
Anyway.
God knows I've been looking, so I can.
I mean he looks probably closer to my age than yours, I would say. So yeah.
This Dan Burnell,
Probably not this guy.
not
Yeah.
it. Probably,
Probably
Yeah,
not.
no, yeah.
This Dan.
Probably not him.
is-
Well, you don't know. He might have done some hard stuff in his life and got to the point where now he looks about Trevor's age.
Maybe he is 26 max, but I would call him 24, 25.
Listen, this guy's in the real estate business. He's dealing with $1 million homes. He had to have started somewhere, which is probably flipping properties, and that's a hard
It's true.
life.
It's true.
I mean, he's just the real estate guy. He's not he doesn't own the homes. He's just the real estate
You
agent.
never know.
Well, okay.
Oh,
barring
anyway, so Overwatch.
barring that, do you want to go over your Overwatch stuff
so-
there, Cam?
So the Mayhem tournament is essentially a double elimination tournament where North America is going to have their own section, Asian Pacific is going to have their own section. It's very cool because teams are playing each other and they're not having to worry about meta. It's open hero choice. People are like really getting into some creative stuff, bringing in some heroes that normally haven't seen a lot of play lately, which is great. There's no hero pool, so there's no restrictions, and outside of the 2-2-2 lock. So,
I just gotta say, Googling this, I am incredibly disappointed that nowhere in this Overwatch May Melee is there a pun on the actual character's name May.
Oh.
I'm very
here's the
disappointed
thing,
in that.
Trevor. When you have to deal with, it should be noted, probably because May is seen as something of a cultural figure in China in like the representation of Overwatch over there.
Of course, yeah. Oh, I remember her being a big thing when in the Free Hong Kong stuff.
Yeah, I mean that was a big thing. That, but like one of the casters, like one of the largest casters for Overwatch League in China, is known for regularly like cosplaying as May. So she is tied deeply into the marketing overseas, especially in mainland China. Well, the Chinese entire Chinese peninsula, really, but because she's just like she's a part of that that culture. So she's seen as a big part of that, and also I don't think that would have translated as well over to the Chinese and Korean like teams languages and the fandoms over there. So
I mean, I get that, but I don't care about their translations. I care about the the English translation that I'm looking at. I'm
Typical
disappointed
American.
that May Melee does not have MEI anywhere in it.
no, that's great. Trevor. What can I tell you? They like I don't know if they threw this thing together at the last minute, but it kind of also feels that way.
It just it seems like a golden opportunity. You have a character and you're saying May twice in the name of this thing.
Melee. Yeah, I guess. Anyway, but it's been pretty cool because we've been seeing a lot of like really fun matchups. There's been a lot of Echo play. Echo's the new hero, where her ultimate is to literally become a copy for I think it's like 15 seconds of another character, and she charges her ult of that character extremely fast. So people make a copy for one of the tanks, and all of a sudden you have two Winstons going primal at the same time, which is a nightmare.
Are you making a copy of
of the
can
enemies?
so they can pick it of the enemy, or can they pick an ally character as well?
They cannot pick an ally. It has to be a member
Okay.
of the enemy team.
Gotcha.
So it's extremely cool. However, it's also been something of like a real game changer, because if you're a DPS player who does hit scan and at the same time you are also really good at tank mechanics, you're doing incredibly well. On the flip side of that, we have seen so much bad tank play from DPS players. It's insane. Like it is like seeing their plays. It's like I do better than that, and I'm in plat. So it's hard. It's hard to see some of their epic tank plays, so to speak. But no, it's been great. It's been a good break from the regular season, which has kind of been tumultuous with COVID-19. And this has kind of put it's been a much needed shot in the arm. And because it's separated from the regular season, people can kind of be looser. They can play players who normally would just be sitting on the bench all year. It's been pretty great so far this last weekend. So it's caused a lot of people bring up maybe there should be more tournaments introduced into Overwatch League's regular season. Kind of as big tentpole events. Other things have been brought up, like maybe it should just transition to a tournament schedule, like the Call of Duty League does. It's causing a lot of discussion, which is good, because the more discussion there is about a game, especially a game that's a couple years old, and we're probably still maybe 1 or 2 years out from seeing the sequel. It's an interesting thing to point to. Granted, I say that, but I also heard rumors that they were going to be doing announcing the launch at BlizzCon this year before BlizzCon was canceled. So,
Yep. Well, we will see where they go from here on Overwatch. Thank you for the update as always, Cam.
you got it.
Even if my only contribution is a bad pun.
The Overwatch watch is done for this week.
There you go. The Overwatch watch of the May Melee.
Wow.
There you go.
Really great stuff, guys. Bring it home.
Thank you. Yeah, that's going to do it for this week's episode. I look forward to hearing whatever comes of the Dan saga moving forward.
Me too.
Yeah. So thank you guys for joining me. Let's go around the table with any metaphorical plugs we have. You can follow Cameron at RevCabot. Anything you want to shout out, Cam?
No, sorry, I'm looking up stuff about Dan right now. I'm good.
Okay, sounds good. You can follow Jazz at Jazz_Foster. Anything you want to give a shout out to, Jazz?
Yeah, I just want to say, take care of your servers if you're bold enough to go out. A lot of us are working not only because we love the job, but because we didn't have a choice. Because as soon as you're offered a job, you don't get unemployment anymore, and so this is the option that we have. Which is not to say I don't love my job. I'm glad to be there, but I did not have a choice to go out every day and risk getting sick to make sure you can have pancakes. So just take care of the people that are taking care of you. We appreciate it, and we hope that you appreciate the service that you get. That's all.
Hear, indeed. Also, Jazz, real quick, did you have a chance to sit down and watch Scoob anytime in the last week or two?
Review is coming.
Yeah?
Scooby-Doo has a
Okay.
big... It's a big piece of me, so it's a big thing that I'm writing, but it'll get done.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I just wanted to check in on that because we talked about it briefly last week. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. I will shout out so this goes live on Monday. This Tuesday's That D Plus show I recorded with Logan this morning. We talked about WALL-E, so check that out tomorrow if you are so inclined. It was a good, fun episode. It was his first time having seen the film, and my first time really going back to it in a number of years. So a lot of fun revisiting WALL-E, so check that out. You can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site, and you can check out thatnerdysite.com for all of the latest content and the many, many podcasts we do over there. If you liked what you heard, please rate, review, like, subscribe, maybe even consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. Every patron gets early access to a monthly bonus episode of this show, and I haven't had a chance to check it out yet, but Jazz, did you and Frank sit down and record that? Is that what Frank sent me a couple days ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the early episode for here at the end of May that will go out will be a conversation between Jazz and Frank that I can't speak to because I've not sat down and edited it together yet. But I'm sure it was a fun conversation. Whatever you guys talked about.
It was something.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, guys, for joining me. Thank you for listening, and as always, stay nerdy and be good to each other.